Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us today Alok Mittal, who is the Executive Chairman and co-founder of Indifi Technologies, which is a platform to expand access to debt financing for Indian SMEs. Alok is a successful first-generation entrepreneur based in India. Alok also worked at Hughes Software Systems in the latter half of the 1990s, and that's how I got to know him as a colleague. Alok, welcome to the show and tell us how are you feeling these days and is it fun to be in the 50s?
Hey, thanks, Prashant. And first of all, my hello to all the Hughes fellow alums. Prashant, 50s is another number. And, I've been saying that now every time I cross a decade, right? So I remember when I was 18, it was like 25 would be really old. And now my daughters are like 30 would be really old. So yeah, I think passage of time, but excited about it.
Awesome. And let me take you back to the year 1990 when you cracked the IIT JEE entrance exam, which was a lot different than it is today. Your All India ranking was number 2. Please tell us frankly, were you expecting to get such a high rank? And forgive me for asking this, did it hurt in the end that you were the second best in the whole of India at the IIT JEE entrance exam?
No, so I wasn't expecting anywhere close to that. For the last couple of years, my school, I went to DPS Puram. I must honestly say, not just in terms of ranking, but in terms of intellect, I wasn't in the top 5 there. So there was no question of, on a national basis hitting this. I think something must have struck on the exam day. So very, very, fortunate to have gotten where I got. Before you just said it, it never occurred to me that I know the number 1 from our batch, of course. Again, brilliant guy. But yeah, I've never really felt that if I worked a little bit harder, I could have been 1. I think my luck got me much further beyond what I would have deserved in that situation.
Well, you're being very humble and, that's why we like you. So you majored in computer science and engineering from IIT Delhi in the year 1994 with a cumulative grade point average or CGPA of 10, which is the highest one can achieve, I believe. This means you never got a B grade, but all A's throughout in all the courses that you took. So tell me, was there any occasion where you risked a B? And above all, how did you manage to get all the A's? Were you a bookworm, or as they call it in BITS Pilani, where I went, a go-to?
I never got called that. So that was the good part of it. No, I was, I've always been a serious student. So, nothing to take away from that. But I think these things have a success bias built into it. At least till that point, I think pretty much every year there would be someone who would get to a 10. And I think post facto, you could always ask the question of what was special about that person. But I think, really, when you combine a lot of probabilities, whatever comes at the top seems like is exceptional. It's really not. It's a game of chances. Did I, get close to being a B in some courses? Yeah, I think I get maybe 3 or 4 courses, and that's why I call it a little bit of game of chance. Now it has become much harder to get there, though. So the surest way to be the last one is to change the rules after you're through. And IITs changed their grading system after we graduated. So now it's much harder to get there. But yeah, I do know that in 93 batch there is a 10. I think 90 batch there was a 10. So it wasn't that unusual at that point in time.
So what's the change of the rules you mentioned?
So the grading system, instead of A, B, C, D, E, F, went to A minus B plus B. So it got more granular. So now if you wanted to be a 10, you had to be all A pluses or whatever that is. And incidentally, when we graduated, IIT Kanpur was producing 5 to 7 10-pointers every year. Because their grading system allowed anyone to drop a grade every semester. So you could land up with 8 Bs and you could still land up with a 10-pointer. So, these are artifacts.
Awesome. And after IIT Delhi, you went to the University of California Berkeley, where you did an MS in Management of Technology, Computer Science, and Management. So there's a fair bit of management there. Clearly, you are not leaning towards pure computer science, and it seems you were straddling to get a flavor for management. Was the idea of entrepreneurship already germinating inside you? Did you ever consider joining IIMs in India? And if not, then why not? Basically, I want to understand, what were you thinking after IIT Delhi?
So I think the interesting part is what I was thinking before IIT Delhi. In 1993, there's this compulsory internship in IITs. That's a summer internship for 2 months or so. And I did that at a startup in Greater Kailash. Another IIT alum who was running his own EDA shop in his basement. Literally 8-10 people who used to work there, very high quality work. I could see him having lunch on the ground floor and then coming back to work in the basement. I just loved the quality of the work, the agency that the person operated with, and of course the lifestyle that it could afford. So it was at that point that in my mind I said, hey, this is what I want to do. Right? And so yes, to your point, by the time I went to Berkeley, the notion that I want to be an entrepreneur was already kind of firm in my mind. And in that context, while my primary major was computer science, I did my master's in computer science. Haas School of Business had just opened at that stage, and they were offering a joint program with College of Engineering, which was called Management Technology Program. So I landed up doing that, and hopefully kind of trying to learn a bit of what business is about. I don't come from a business family, so to that extent, I did realize that that was something that I needed to learn and get familiar with.
And why not IIMs?
Actually, when I was at Hughes, 1997, I did appear for my CAT exams. And I did kind of create an option of going there. I think two things happened at that point. One, I met my better half in the first half of 97. And so the incentive systems changed. But second, also because this idea of primarily being an entrepreneur was high in my mind. I think the trade-off was really between whether I spend 2 years going to IIMs and then potentially working after that, or do I kind of continue on my pathway towards entrepreneurship. Not that you can't do it after you do an MBA, but just kind of extend the timelines for doing that.
Excellent. And we'll come to your stint in Hughes and how you met your better half over there in some detail in just a bit. But coming back to your stint in the college, how was your experience at the University of California, Berkeley, where you studied from 1994 till 1996? Do you recall any interesting incidents there? After all, in spite of everything, you were an Indian off your boat there in a new culture. Also, what would your general advice be to even students of today who go abroad to pursue higher studies?
Yeah. So see, the flight that I took to Berkeley was my first flight ever. Right. So yeah, you're right. I'd never been on a plane before, domestic or international. And to that extent, it was a big change in the environment. I think one of the decisions that turned out to be fortuitous was I decided to stay for the first year at this place called International House in Berkeley, which is kind of call it a dorm where at that point, students from about 65 nationalities were staying under one roof. Right? So it was a extremely multicultural environment. I was not familiar with it. I was not used to it. But I think in the process, I got to learn a fair bit about just very different countries, very different beliefs, and I think a context in which people could differ in their views, but still be friends with each other. And honestly, I don't count that as one of my strengths. I'm a very math engineering person. And to that extent, I think that environment really worked very well for me in landing right in the US. As part of that, I got to spend, for example, an extended weekend with a host family in US and see how they lived. So I think the cultural experiences were certainly very rewarding. Now, I think at several stages in my life, whenever you start feeling like you're at the top of your game, right? You get inserted in an environment where you're not. So when I went from my first school to DPS, that happened. DPS to IIT, that happened, and in some sense, from IIT to Berkeley was the same thing, because my fellow students in the graduate class for computer science, they were just another level, right? They had actually built stuff before they came to Berkeley. I had only studied stuff when I went to Berkeley. So it was a very stimulating environment to learn, because, in some sense, I was treating masters as a low risk stage for me. It didn't really matter how well I did or not. I ended up taking some courses that are students normally take after 3 to 4 years in graduate school. And so it was intimidating, because there were, advanced PhD students taking that class, but it was also very, very exciting. So yeah, I think both from a cultural standpoint and from a learning standpoint, Berkeley was kind of a booster shot.
Which courses are you talking about?
So this particular one was the advanced course in networking. And then I broadly kind of focused on the systems area at Berkeley: operating systems, networking, compilers, things of that nature. But I still remember this course where I don't remember what grade I got. If I got a B, I would have been happy. But it was just, we were not discussing, we were not reading off the book. These were all PhD students who were used to research, reading research papers, and they were on top of what was happening in 5 different labs around the country. It was just very, very stimulating.
Excellent. And after your MS at Berkeley, you decided to come back to India in 1996. Now, why did you decide to settle in the US itself, presumably even after seeing the contrast in the life and the lifestyle of the US, when the difference was much starker in the 1990s?
Yeah, I've never really felt anything wrong with my lifestyle, anything missing from it, regardless of what stage we've been at. But as I mentioned earlier, my core motivation already was to start a company. And of course, Valley is the hotbed of entrepreneurship. Maybe I wasn't as educated about it as I should have been. But somewhere in my mind, I felt like, India is where I know things, I know people, I know how it works, and hence it may be easier for me to start my entrepreneurship journey here. I also kind of felt at home in India. I never felt quite the same way in the United States. And so, yeah, I'm happy I could take that decision when I did.
Excellent. And when you returned to India in 1996, you joined Hughes Software Systems in the January of 1996. And I believe there is a history behind it, because even before you went to the University of California, Berkeley, you had an offer from Hughes, didn't you? So please tell us all about how you joined Hughes. What were your first impressions of the company? What kind of work it was, and everything else you remember from the 3 years and 5 months that you spent at Hughes Software Systems?
Yeah, no. So Hughes is the only company that would hire me. So my campus job was Hughes. And I think when I was appearing for those interviews, I already had admits from my 3 or 4 US universities. And I remember going to Adesh, I think, and he asked me. I think Vinod was interviewing, Adesh was alongside. They asked me, hey, you already have an. Oh no, I had applied, and they asked me that, hey, if you get a offer for your masters, then what will you do? And I said, if I get an offer, I'll go. I'll do my masters. But I would like to come back and join you guys. And of course, in that day and age, it was unusual for people to come back. So I think all of us had a laugh at it, and we left it at that. And then middle of January 1996, I landed up at Hughes. I don't think I even called anyone. I just landed up at the Gurgaon office, and I asked for Vinod to say, hey, I told you I'll be here, and I'm here. So would you give me a job? And they said, sure. But you will have to take the test again. I said, sure. Hopefully, if I could clear the test, then I could do it now. I took the test. Adesh met me, Vinod met me, and then they were kind enough to kind of offer me a job back again. The other option I had at that time was a more specialized area. And again, because I wanted to be in entrepreneurship, I thought that a relatively broader area might work better for me. Because going down and deep into a specialized area, might not have allowed me to do a startup. So that was kind of the broad thinking behind joining Hughes. Hughes was a extremely exciting first job for me. It's one thing to study in the university; it's another thing to solve real problems. And because Hughes was very early at that stage, I think all of us got an opportunity to work on things that in a larger company we might have taken 3 or 4 or 5 years to get to. I was also lucky to have great mentors, both on the technology side, right? Prabir, I still credit him as being the person who taught me how to write code and to think about problems, right? And then on the management side, I got a lot of support, encouragement. Hughes tolerated a lot of my mistakes. And sometimes I was surprised at how they were allowing me to make mistakes. Honestly, if I was sitting in the boss's chair at that time, I would have raised questions on a prospective person. So I think Hughes was a great place for me to learn. And it has led to some friendships that last to the date.
Well, so at Hughes Software Systems, almost everybody got a feeling that you were the management's blue-eyed boy. You joined at a higher post, you were given rapid promotions. At one point of time, it was an open secret that the whole management, including Vinod Sood, no less, was spending a lot of time to convince you to continue at HSS. I was much junior. I was much junior then, but I do remember that a lot of your peers were envious of the treatment you were getting, which we could only dream of. So on one hand, you were close to all of us, and then on the other, you were close to the top management. So tell us, what were those discussions all about? And amidst all those discussions, how were you able to concentrate on the work?
Yeah, I think all of us carry our own perceptions of how things were like. I explicitly remember during when I was being hired, Hughes was very, very clear that they will not give me a differential position or compensation at the point of entry. And I respect them for that. So, as much as Hughes was a very flexible place to work in, I think they were very sensitive to how they want to manage people, what signals are they sending out. So no, I did not join at a higher position. I did not join at a higher salary than was accorded to masters joinees at that point in time. Yes, I think I was lucky in the quality of work that was given to me. And I think both Praveer and my managers Madhu at that time, they trusted me with it. And that I think did lead to my being able to progress faster by being able to address the responsibilities that were being given to me. They also gave me responsibilities outside of technology, and that I'm really thankful for because that was my goal, right? So I still remember a sales trip that I made to Singapore to sell a new solution. I was obviously going there with the salesperson, and my role was to architect the solution, and I messed up on it. And we lost that deal. And I came back and I was sure I'll get hauled up for it. But no one ever blinked an eyelid on it. Like, you tried, right? And people moved on. So yeah, I did get access to a set of opportunities that I'm truly thankful for. After 2.5 years at the Gurgaon campus, we were opening our new facility at Bangalore. And Madhu kind of asked me to come there with him. And that gave me a little bit more exposure to the new area that we were working on, which was the voice over IP signaling stack. And in that process, take up some of the program and product management responsibilities. So again, that was an experience that was very aligned to my goals. When I decided to start my company, there were actually no long conversations. Arun called me to have a chat. And, besides kind of shaking hands with Arun, that this would have been my first real meeting with Arun, right? I was like 4 levels of, I don't know how many levels down from where Arun was. And he called me and he asked me, he said, hey, I heard that you are leaving Hughes and I would like to understand why, right? And I told him that I'm leaving to start my own company. And that was that. Arun did not pressure me to stay on. He said, if you're starting your own company, I'm not going to, try to hold you back. But I just want to let you know that for whatever reason, if you want to come back to Hughes, we'll be delighted to take you back. And I think that was an amazing statement. Right? This is what true leaders are made of. Right? Because it took the risk perception out of me totally. Right? See, I don't come from a business family. I don't have a financial backup. And when you're leaving a job in 90s was not the prime time for startups. Right? The biggest concern in your head is what if it doesn't work? And kind of those, 30 seconds, Arun just took that risk perception out. Right? I knew that as humiliating as it might be for me personally, but even if this did not work, I had a place to come back to. So that was my conversation with Arun when I decided to leave Hughes.
That's very touching, and that was the management of Hughes for all of us. So, of all the people, perhaps your toughest senior, and perhaps tough for a lot of others, if not the boss, was Kanan Kasturi, and we hardly get to talk about him now after 3 decades. I would hazard a guess that the relationship between him and you was that of a cliched boss and the rebelling employee. If you don't mind, please tell us, how was it like working with Kanan Kasturi, and while you were at it, any interesting incidents which happened with him?
No, so, I think all of us mature as we age. I was certainly not a mature person then. People can debate how mature I am now. But Kanan was a very supportive boss to me. So when I say that Hughes gave me a lot of opportunities, Kanan gave me as many opportunities as anyone else did in the company. So yeah, I'm thankful to Kanan. I did meet him after that. I met Kanan after my stay at Hughes, and I think Kanan was every bit Hughes as any of the other people we may like. He had a different style of operation, but he was very supportive and he nurtured me, as much as any other boss did for me.
How was the style different?
So, Kanan was a little bit like me, in the sense that there is work to be done and let's get that done, as efficiently as we can. His effectiveness at getting work done was very good, right? And when I go to, people who report to me and I ask them, hey, what is it that you would like me to change about myself? Right? I often get feedback that, hey, Alok, you need to be a bit more relationship oriented, right? And be more empathetic. So yeah, I think all of us have our own styles of leadership. But fundamentally, at the first stage, are you getting done what you need to get done? B, are you nurturing people and making sure that you're building the next set of leaders? I think those are the key outcomes that people should be viewed against, not the style of their leadership. And I think Kanan was very, very positive with me, at least when I look at those parameters.
Awesome. And I must ask this. It is at Hughes Software Systems that you fell in love with your better half, the very talented graduate herself from IIT Delhi, and an accomplished author with a couple of bestseller books under her belt, Parul Agarwal and now Parul Mittal. You were on a mission to quote her, weren't you, at Hughes Software? You shared the cubicles, and at one point of time, you chose to sit with your backs against each other. They were close friends like Namit, who might have even helped you orchestrate the whole drama, if you will. But for the sake of the rest of us, and to end all the speculation once and for all, please tell us in detail how the whole affair went about, with a dream relationship beginning then, which continues touchwood till now.
No. So I think some of what you're saying is your storytelling. So I'm okay with that. I did not obviously had any leeway to choose Parul as being part of my team or my cubicle. Those were decisions beyond my pay grade at that point in time. There was a little bit of a back history to this, where a few months before, Parul's father had approached for a matrimonial proposal. And at that point, I was in no kind of phase to say I want to be married anytime in the near future. I think what Parul tells me, she looked at my picture and she said, "Not this guy." So there was history before Parul joined Hughes. So when she came in, because of that backstory, we obviously kind of knew each other. We had never met each other before. And Namit and Vikas and all knew that background existed. So I think initially it was just kind of bantering after that, right? It was nothing more than that. But yeah, over the next 2 to 3 months, one thing led to another, and we landed up developing affection for each other, and here we are. But yeah, this was not, what a senior software engineer in Hughes is capable of doing and decisions they are capable of making, and I think a lot of what happened was destiny.
Well, sounds just like out of the movies, and I wish you a long, happy, and forever a happy married life, and wonderful. So when you left HSS, and thus after 3 years, 5 months, you started a company called Web Neuron, which I believe morphed itself into jobsahead.com. What was your original idea with Web Neuron, and why did you change gears to jobsahead.com, or did you change gears at all?
No. So Web Neuron was just a placeholder company name, right? So before I left HSS for starting an internet business, I was already beginning to test the market, whether I could offer software development services as an independent business, right? And software services, because in 90s, that was the only business that a person with my skill set could potentially do, right? And so that was the placeholder name for the software services business, is at Web Neuron. When Puneet and I met, Puneet was my co-founder at Jobs Ahead. When we met and we decided to do an internet business, we said, we don't know what is the product we will launch. We don't know what will be the brand name of that. But let's incorporate a company because someone needs to pay Alok. And what should the name of the company be? I said, I've got this thing, we can just use this. So Web Neuron was never a real business that we wanted to do. We did end up doing a couple of software projects in there to just make sure we could build the technology team and things of that nature. But the first business that we launched actually was called Zip Ahead. And this was a portal for all youth in India. So just for context, at that time, India had about 1 million internet users. And all of them were youth, right? All of them were, 18 to 34. So we said, we'll give them everything. The concept of a vertical portal at that time was hot. So we were doing jobs, we were doing dating, we were doing selling books, and we were doing fashion, because we thought these are the 4 things that youngsters want. And we launched that in November, 4 months after I left my job at Hughes. And within 45 days, we realized that all of our customers were going to jobs, right? They didn't want fashion, they didn't want dating, they didn't want to buy books. And as soon as we realized that, we took the decision to pull out Jobs Ahead from the mothership and focus on that. And Zipahead continued for a while as a more, as a broader platform, but all the investment, all the focus very quickly shifted to Jobs Ahead, because that is what we discovered people wanted.
Okay. That sounds like an exciting journey towards jobsahead.com. But tell me something, Alok. Here you were at HSS doing state-of-the-art work in networking. and satellite communications, and you left all that in the name of entrepreneurship, but which was, and please forgive me for saying this, ultimately a glorified form of being a broker and a headhunter. The country does not need, a lot of argue, to waste taxpayers' money on an IITian to do such a job, whether it is in the name of his own company or somebody else's. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of this is about our individual perceptions of what the country needs. Right? I think the country needs more entrepreneurs than Oracle developers. Right? But ultimately, I don't think any of us do what we do because the country needs it. I would like to kind of, showcase that I'm doing what I'm doing because the country needed it. But the country also needs soldiers. Maybe I should have been on the front line if that is what I care about. I think what we do, what is exciting for us. And for me, the notion of entrepreneurship and building something from scratch was the exciting part. And at some level, it didn't really matter what business you were in. So I don't claim that I was in jobs there because, as a young adult, I could not find my job, and I wished that there was something that could help me find a job. There wasn't a personal connect to the category like many entrepreneurs do have, right? But it was that excitement of building something that didn't exist, has a positive social impact to it. But above all, think of it as a way of expressing yourself.
Okay, fair enough. And as you must have been struggling and settling at jobsahead.com, the dot-com bust happened. Tell me, what was your mental state at that time? Clearly, the business must have been in doldrums. Your detractors must have scoffed at you for charging towards the proverbial windmills and having a shirt taken off your back. After all, you even laid off your CEO at Jobs Ahead, didn't you? Along with letting go of part of your workforce who would have risked all they had to join you in the startup. How did that feel? And did you ever think of giving up and returning back to Hughes or anywhere else for a job? How did you deal with that period?
Yeah, no, it was a tough period. I don't think the thought of quitting was prime, and I think I was very lucky again to have Puneet as a co-founder there. I wonder what my reaction would have been as a solo founder if I was in that position. But because they were both of us, we could kind of lean on each other to keep the upside in perspective when all of this was going on. We did not have an external CEO at that point, so that part is certainly factually incorrect. Puneet was our CEO. He continued like a founder does. So there wasn't any CEO to fire, but we did have to let go of some of our people to make sure that our revenue and cost were aligning. And again, we did not have the maturity to be able to do that in one go. We thought, hey, let's cut some and our revenue will catch up, and then let's cut some and our revenue will catch up. Till we got to a point where we said, hey, the revenues are not catching up. And hence, we have to kind of get to a break even through cost actions. And more so than the dot-com bust, what hurt us there was the IT bust. Bulk of our business was IT recruiting. So the telecom and IT bust in 2000, 2001 is the one that really put the brakes on the growth of the company. So the dot-com bust kind of put the brakes on the financing. But by itself, we could have weathered that better because we didn't have this monetization problem. We were monetizing Jobs Ahead from day 90, right? Third month we started monetizing. But what really hurt us was the IT bust, which means that the recruiting volumes in IT fell significantly. So we had to take tough decisions. That was a hard phase. But that phase lasted for about 12 months, which is the time in which by end of 21, we got to a break even. And then we could kind of shift our focus energies back to growth in the company.
Please tell us how the takeover of jobsahead.com by monster.com happened. Please tell us some negotiation tactics you ran into, which might be instructional for folks in a similar situation. Essentially, please tell us the whole story, which will also serve as an advice to the folks undergoing a prospective takeover.
Yeah. So, the person who was running Monster India at that time had been an ex-Jobs Ahead employee. He continues to be a great friend of mine. And so at some level, it was not an adversarial negotiation. Right? There were things that we were sensitive to. For example, it was clear in both Puneet's and my mind that we would not stay long term because Puneet has a whole business to run. I wanted to be in the entrepreneur shoes all the time. We wanted to make sure that employees are taken care of. We had a much larger team than Monster did at that point in time. We obviously wanted value for what we had built. So there was those kind of parameters, and Arun, who was a different Arun, who was the CEO of Monster India at that point in time, knew that he understood the value in the company. So the negotiation was relatively smooth, and it was fairly collaborative in the sense of what should the resultant org structure look like. Monster wanted me to stay on for 6 months for a handover period. So those were all fairly reasonable asks. So it was a smooth process. I don't think I have negotiation tips from that experience because it was not, as I said, an adversarial negotiation.
Wow, there's almost an innocence about this takeover and the journey, wonderful journey which you just described. Right. So, but do you think that entrepreneurs should approach it with this innocence these days, or they should be ready to swim with the sharks?
See, so I have been in the middle of several other negotiations after that experience, especially having been an investor and now running Indifi for 10 years. We have raised multiple rounds of financing. I don't claim to be an expert at it, but I think what has worked for me is, being able to understand what is important for other people and being able to understand what is important for you. And the zone of negotiation really is that pathway where you weave both of those together. It is not, you can't make something that is important for the others critical for you. Right? Because that's a sure way to break the negotiation. And normally that has worked well, right? For example, when I'm raising money today, I know investors want alignment, right? They don't want me to be making money unless they have made money, right? That's a principle that I agree with, right? So I will never put my monetization goals ahead of the investors and try to negotiate for that. And there are founders who would do that because that is important for them, right? Similarly, for example, control of the company has not been an important factor for me at any point in time, not in jobs ahead, not now, not when I was investing, right? Now, investors need that, not because they want to control companies, and I've been in investor shoes, it's no fun controlling a company. But because they need a backup to the entrepreneur alignment, breaking off. So if you understand that, then, you're okay with it. And then, what do I want, right? I should be clear about that. I want to be able to build the company for the long term, right? And so what I am negotiating for in that case is the ability to do that. Right? So I think that in my mind is the key piece, and that would be kind of my suggestion to entrepreneurs. Ultimately, these are partnerships. Even when you're selling the company, and we sold a few companies, as an investor after JobsNet as well. There is an amazing degree of pride in seeing what you have sold flourish. Right? If you sell something and it falls off in 6 months, what have you built? Right? So I think I took a lot of pride, and Arun and I obviously have been in touch for now 25 years through JobsNet and later. And he came back one day and he said, "Hey, Alok, all the value that we paid you for Jobs Ahead, we think 2 people in your team," and he named those people. He said, 2 people in your team are worth that much. Forget the business. Right? And that was not, again, you asked me that question about, hey, did you feel bad about not being number one? Did I feel bad about this statement? No, I was delighted. Right? I said, this is amazing, right? Because it shows you what you built. It shows you the quality of people that you were carrying and the fact that they've continued to stay with the company and contribute. So I think those are things that, are important for me. And in that context, I think that's a very fond part of my life journey.
I can clearly sense that it is coming from your heart, and it's not just a classroom instructions, and that's wonderful. But after the acquisition by Monster of Jobs Ahead, uh, reported on May 25th, 2004, for approximately rupees 40 crores, which was at that time around 9 million US dollars, you must have suddenly got a lot of cash at hand. At that time, speculation was rife that you made around 4 to 5 crores in the transaction at that time based on your around 10 to 12% stake in the company. To some, it may not seem like much now, but at that time, it was more like 40 to 50 crores of today. So tell me, when you told all this to Parul, what was her reaction? What was your reaction? And what actions you consciously took to ensure that you don't blow it all away doing something foolish?
So, see, obviously, this was more money than I could have ever hoped for, right? These numbers are just numbers. The scale of exits in the Indian startup ecosystem is now maybe 4 orders of magnitude above what we sold the company at, right? So, thankfully, the ecosystem and the upside possibilities in the ecosystem have multiplied immensely over the last 20 years. Honestly, I think we felt happy that we had made money, but I don't think either I or Parul really knew what to do with it. And so there wasn't any significant change in, the house we lived in, the car we drove, the vacations that we would go on as a result of that exit. I did go to a person who would be my wealth advisor, and I asked him this question of, hey, Rohit, do you think I can retire now? And he went back, he did his math, he came back and said, Alok, I think you can retire. And I'm so glad. I'm so glad I did not take his advice. Uh, you know, um, yeah, I don't think money has changed the way we live. Neither for me nor for Parul. We are just not used to this. So we still haggle, as much as we used to do when we didn't have the money.
Since you have been in that position where you got a windfall and you clearly protected it and have come out as a success, what would your advice be to those people? And we hear all about celebrities getting a windfall and blowing it all away. So what would your advice be to the people who get a windfall to be careful about?
Look, I don't think there are generic advices to any of this. I was meeting an entrepreneur day before yesterday. Right? He's in a cash flow business. And he felt great that he was driving a BMW. Right? And, is that wrong? No, it's not. That's what gives him joy. And hence he's doing that. And if you can't spend on things that give you joy, then what's the point? Right? I started investing in companies, right? Because entrepreneurship is so core to what I think is worthwhile to invest behind. In 2005, I made my first angel investment, right? So maybe that was my way of throwing away money, right? There was no evidence to angel investments being successful at that point in time. So I think all of us have our own indulgences. I can justify mine, you can justify yours. Yeah, I think the only piece that I think is true about money is that there's no permanence to it, both in absolute sense and in relative sense, right? 4 crores might have sounded a lot then, today 4 crores doesn't mean anything, right? So I think that is an important perspective to keep, that what you think is a lot of money today in absolute terms may not be a lot of money tomorrow in absolute terms. right? And what you think it's a lot in relative terms, right? It could be 90 percentile today and it could be 40 tomorrow. So I think keeping that perspective is helpful to keep you grounded, right? That would be my only kind of suggestion here. But yeah, when I see people making money and enjoying that and throwing that away, I'm happy for them, because that is what is giving them joy.
Money is not permanent, and that's a word of caution which Alok Mittal from Indifi Technologies is giving to us, pearls of wisdom. But on that note, some employees of Jobs Ahead were of the opinion that you and Puneet Dalmia, the other founder, hurried with this takeover. And if you would have waited, you could have sold Jobs Ahead at a much higher valuation. So do you agree with that? And further, did the employees of Jobs Ahead also create wealth alongside you?
Yeah. So, I think not just the employees of Jobs Ahead, everyone in hindsight would hold that view. And if I were to judge this in hindsight, would I hold that view? Probably yes. Right? We took a decision at that point in time, which seemed like a good decision to us. None of us have regretted that decision ever, right? Even in our dreams. I think that, especially for someone like me, coming from where I was coming, allowed me to do a lot of other things that I might not have done if I had stayed invested in that business. I might have made more money, that's fine. But my investment journey would not have happened, for example. And I would not have met as many, founders building. I'm now back through Kenan and my own angel investment efforts. I would have backed about 140 entrepreneurs. Right. So I think the counterfactuals are always harder to answer. They can look attractive. But I think what I take great deal of satisfaction in is what did that open up for me, right, as opportunities, and those have been extremely satisfying. Employees, yes, that was part of the ethos when we built Jobs Ahead, and while the overall magnitude of the exit was what it was, and you mentioned the numbers, I think broadly, whatever didn't go to investors was broadly cut into three pies, which was me, Puneet, and employees. So a third of the management money went to employees, and we believed that this should go deep. So even our peon made money, which was meaningful to him. So yeah, that was something that was part of where we were coming from, what we wanted to accomplish.
Wow, you said your peon made money. He actually got some ESOPs, or did you dole out some money to him?
Yeah, I don't remember the mechanism because it's been 20 years. I would think it was ESOP. What and how else we would do it?
Wonderful. So looking back at Jobs Ahead now, and you alluded to this, that the stake doesn't matter to you so much. But do you think giving away a massive 75% stake in the company to the VC, Chris Capital, I believe, was a mistake, because you and Puneet Dalmia as founders were left with very less equity, and by corollary, even the employees? Was it easy to work in such an environment? And did Chris Capital folks interfere with your operations and perhaps used to breathe down your necks all the time? Further, what would your advice be in general to the founders of today's company when it comes to carving out stakes to the VCs?
So, Chris Capital did not own 75% in Jobs Ahead. But besides the point, Chris Cap was an extremely supportive investor, right? And you have to understand where they were coming from, right? Ashish is a Harvard grad, had worked for very few years. He was young and restless, right? And that's why he decided to come back to India and start a fund here because he believed that he wanted to be part of the India story and he wanted to reinforce that. Right? To understand Ashish, you have to look at what he did after CRISCAP. He started Central Square Foundation, which is a non-profit in the education space, trying to transform early education, primary education, and the likes in the country. Right. So you're talking about people here who have a very, very strong bias towards nation building. Right. And that is who Ashish is. So Chris Capital supported us through the downturn. They didn't just write us the first check. Right. When we could have been a dead pool company, they came in and supported us. And even when we were finally at the verge of selling the company, it's basically a money back deal for Chris. Right. But they didn't say, hey, this is not the right point to sell, or hey, Alok Puri management, you should get a smaller share. None of this was there. So it's a great relationship. I think they supported us. Again, sometimes in my life, I feel like people are supporting me more than I would have supported people. I mentioned an example earlier, and this was another example where Chris was very, very kind to us. So I don't think ownership numbers drive it. Right? I think it is a sense of what value you are bringing. Are you being transparent and are you building a relationship of trust? Will you take the right decisions in interest of the company? Right? I think those are the key questions for a successful partnership. I think it has very little to do with control. And I mentioned to you this, right? So I have always lived with the principle that if it is better for the company to get someone else in place of me, then I would be supportive of that decision. Right? Because if I'm not, then I should not go and raise any money at all. It's not a question of control, minority, majority. But when I'm going and raising someone else's money, I'm committed to that I'll put the company's interest ahead of mine. Right? And I think that is a fundamental contract that you are entering into with your investors.
I appreciate this amazing simplicity of your thought process, which takes us away from that politics of the corporate world. So I'm sure the viewers are just enjoying this perspective. But tell me something, did you sense a change in the attitude of your friends and acquaintances before and after the wealth creation from jobs ahead? Did you get to identify your true friends from the false ones? And please do tell us about this, frankly, in a little bit of detail.
Yeah, no, so see, my core group of friends, dates back to my IT days. Right? Some of them are more successful in every sense of the word than I am. Right? So to that extent, this was not an outlier. I think one of the most beautiful things in life is when your friends can be happy for you. Right? And I say this with thought, because it's not always the case. And so my friend felt happy for me, right? And that was amazing. So no, with my closest set of friends, there was no change in attitude. I think with acquaintances, sometimes you can sense there is a bit of distance that gets created. I would like to believe that is because how they perceive you and not because how you perceive them. But yeah, if I look at what I would think of as my 20 closest relationships, I don't think this impacted them at all.
Wonderful. And I always treated you very close to my heart, though we were colleagues at HSS. And I recall an incident where I had to, exercise some ESOPs. I didn't have money to do that back at Hughes Software Systems. And I needed I think 4 or 5 lakhs at that point of time. Either I could go to a bank so I came to you instead and just told you about it. And you just didn't ask any questions or blink an eyelid. You just signed me a check and just gave it to me. Thanks for that, Alok. I mean, are you always like that with your friends?
I don't know. That's for my friends to answer. But if 4 or 5 lakhs can give someone so much joy, What else can you buy with it? Which is worth more, right? So I'm happy
And for the
to.
record, of course, I returned you back the money, and I was foolish enough to, I remember, carry back some, I don't know, that time it was Shoppers Stop coupons, which, as a practical gesture of my gratitude, and you wouldn't budge, you wouldn't take them. And but thanks once again for that help, and it was wonderful. And I'm sure all your friends love you and for who you are. But tell me something. Why did you not continue at Monster after the takeover? After all, it was still your baby. You mentioned Monster wanted you to continue for 6 months, perhaps because you wanted to leave. Was it that Monster did not want you to want you around, or you really wanted to move on to where you joined soon, Bearings Private Equity Partners, where you were the investment manager responsible for technology, telecom, BPO? How did that happen? Transition.
Yeah. No, so see, you have to understand how Monster operated. Monster is a global business headquartered out of the US, right? India was one of the businesses, one of the geographies that they ran. And so that environment would have been more corporate kind of an environment. Arun is a very capable leader. So in that context, and given what my passion, skill set, expertise was at that point, I would have probably, handled the product responsibility for them. I wanted to get on and build my next company. So I came off Monster roles in February of 2005. And then I started to work on my next business. And I was working through some of these business ideas when one fine day, I think it was a Saturday in September of 25, when I went and met Rahul Bhasin, who was the managing partner at Bearings. And literally our discussion was, hey, while you are looking at your next business idea, why don't you come and help build early stage investing for us? Bearings traditionally is a control investor, late stage control investor. So I said, sure, on Monday, I joined them to, do it in the meanwhile, so to say. And then I liked what I was doing. But both Rahul and I realized that, that was not the right place to build it. And that is kind of what led me to, joining Kenan within a span of 6 months to then help them build their India business. So venture capital was something that happened somewhat accidentally. It was not part of my plans, even on 10th of September 2005.
Okay. And after a rather brief stint of 7 months at Bearings Private Equity Partners, you joined Kenan Partners India and worked there for 9 years, serving as managing director and advisor. So first of all, why such a short stint at Bearings? Was it a friendly parting? And then again at Kenan, it seems like you were doing a job. What happened to that entrepreneurial spirit inside you when you are at the prime of your talent? Did you not think of starting up any other company immediately? Or you just took it easy, being in a position of power and bossing around over the entrepreneurs who must be queuing up to you with a begging bowl in their hands?
No, nothing like that. So as I mentioned, my primary effort after coming out of Monster was to start another company. I was working on a business idea. And venture capital kind of happened accidentally, thanks to Rahul for that. The transition to Kenan was, friendly. There was no kind of fights to get there, but was essentially a realization that the culture in a control-oriented private equity firm is very different from the culture you want in an early-stage investing firm. And it was at that point that another friend of mine from IIT made the connection with Kenan. Kenan and most venture capital firms are partnership firms, right? So there isn't a CEO, right? So there's a set of partners who run the firm. So in some sense, it's their collective startup. I did not join as a partner. Kenan does not hire anyone as partners. But that line of sight was available. And India was a new business, and I was interested with building that business out. Given how dearly I hold entrepreneurship in my heart, it seemed like a great way to participate to get a broader view of entrepreneurship than one gets in just one's own startup. And the sentiment that many of us came, and when I say many of us, in 2006, a lot of VC funds started in India. So literally, it was kind of after the 99 bubble, it was the first set of VC firms that came into the country. And most of us were coming from a position of, again, helping build an ecosystem. The notion that the ability to invest gives you power, I don't think we even realize that. As I mentioned earlier, that is not how Chrysalis had behaved with us. Right? They had behaved with a very strong sense of partnership and not that of control. And that is the kind of belief system that all of us in the venture industry circa 2006 were bringing to the market. Most of us were ex-operators. We thought we could bring a degree of understanding and empathy to entrepreneurs. We could bring a degree of insights that might be useful in building some of these companies. So again, think of 2006 as that first wave of VCs beyond the 90s, which kind of then died down during the dot-com bust. Coming in very much with the objective of building the early ecosystem. I don't think I even understood how you make money in venture capital businesses when I joined Kenan. Over time, I learned, what that equation looks like. But you used the word innocent, naive earlier, and I think some of the best decisions I have made in life are of that nature.
So in the end, do you take investment decisions by gut, or are they purely cold data-driven, or perhaps some combination? And further, over the course of 19 years, have you seen a change in the pattern of a typical Indian entrepreneur?
Yeah. So, when I joined Kenan, there was no rush to make an investment, right? So I learned how to invest by sitting in partner meetings, by listening to the discussion they were having. Deepak Kamra, who was my mentor at Kenan, discussing deals with him. So, there is a certain muscle that you need to develop for making investments. There are also certain mistakes you make while you do that, and the model allows you to kind of grow into being an investor. So again, Kenan was a great place to do that. It truly worked as a partnership firm. It allowed people to make mistakes in their decisions, and it had the right, mentoring pathways to bring people up to speed. So to that extent, the decisions landed up being more systematic than just gut decisions. But yeah, we were still investing in early stage seed and Series A companies. So data in those companies is not robust. So you're kind of reading the tea leaves to say, does this look like it's in the right zone? Does the opportunity look large enough? Are there precedences of such businesses being built elsewhere? Can we learn from there? Right. So those are some of the supports that you're using to evaluate an opportunity. And then obviously you're looking at the entrepreneur and saying, hey, is this an entrepreneur who we believe will persist, right? Will be agile, will be putting the company's interest ahead of their own, right? Some of the things I spoke about earlier. So I think that is, broadly the decision process. Have entrepreneurs changed? Absolutely. One of my favorite songs, What a Wonderful World. They'll learn much more than we'll ever know. Every generation of entrepreneurs is far smarter, far more sophisticated, far more aware than what we saw when we were growing up. And I think that is what is progress. That is why we are seeing 4 orders of magnitude better outcomes today than we were seeing in the early 2000s. So yeah, like a professor's job, this job keeps you young.
Absolutely, and both of us still remain young at heart, I suppose. We always say that we are perhaps 25 with remaining years as experience. So please tell us, on that note, you couldn't always get everything right all the time. You are a human being after all. So please tell us some of your best investments and some of the absolute disasters you must have had as an angel investor.
Yeah, I like to talk more about characteristics than companies because risk is, embedded in early stage investing. And many times attributing risk to a company or to an entrepreneur is sidestepping that learning of what really made a company win or lose. Um, I think some of the best investments have been a confluence of a market opportunity, uh, the entrepreneur, and luck. Right? Uh, you know, for example, there's a company called MoneyView, which is still an operating company where I happen to be an early investor in the personal lending domain. Right? I think it's the whatever you want to say, top 0.1%, entrepreneurs running that business. Right? But at the same time, the market has been important in terms of how that market has grown, how the digitization capabilities in that ecosystem have taken roots, right? And thirdly, it is a matter of luck. You start a company and you face credit down cycle right at the beginning of the journey. Think about the dot-com bust. Right? Is a very hard thing to recover from. Right? So successes in my mind, take all three of those. It takes a lot of block and tackle on part of the entrepreneurs. No business plans materialize as they were conceived. You are constantly adjusting, how you're executing, what you're executing. You're constantly learning. We've made mistakes at Indifi that we are still recovering from. Yeah. On the downside, I think focus on the customer or losing focus on the customer is one big piece because that is what gives you agility, right? You know when to turn only from your customers. Right? Rest everything is secondary knowledge that media is peddling. Capitalization strategy, great opportunities, great entrepreneurs, but fall to number 5 in terms of capital raise and hence are not able to invest alongside competition. I've lost money on those kind of things. So those would be some of the factors where we've made mistakes, but I think more than mistakes, this particular piece is the inherent risk in a startup. Right? In hindsight, one can call them mistakes, but when we invest in companies, I don't think we know which one is going to succeed and which one is going to not succeed. And then you kind of rinse, repeat. You learn from what patterns you've observed, and then hopefully you can make better decisions next time. You never learn too much. I had learned in my early 2000s that e-commerce businesses weren't scaling. And in 2007, 2008, that learning turned out to be a terrible mistake. Right? So again, I think it's important to understand how times are changing, what in the market is changing, and move with that.
What would be an example of the latter category you described, where all the parameters are not in the favor?
Sorry, latter being companies that did not succeed?
Yes.
Yeah, so let me take a company that I worked on with a friend of mine, which was into used auto space, right? And we were trying to say, hey, we should be able to essentially enable dealers to buy automobiles and then sell automobiles. This was way back in late 2000, first decade. And that business did not work out at all, right? And I think the mistake we made there was dealing with that more as a pipeline business and bootstrap business, which means that, hey, buy a car, sell a car, rather than trying to create a platform with the adequate investments behind it. Right. So that was a mistake where I was kind of on the operator table. And clearly that is a space where successful businesses have been built. In just 2 or 3 years after that, I ended up investing in Cartrade, which is a public company now, which has that as the core of the business, but built the right way. So yeah, that would be an example of the latter category, but also the third point that I made of saying you can't learn too much. There is another team sitting out there with a different set of insights, and those insights might be the right way to solve for the market.
Has anybody approached you or you want yourself to be part of the Indian Shark Tank?
No, I have not been approached for that. Much before the Indian Shark Tank started, there was a proposal to TIE, where I have served for now 22, 23 years, that we should start a show of that nature. And a show of that nature did not fit the TIE value system. Right. So, for reasons that are legitimate in the media world, many times on these shows, entrepreneurs get treated in a manner that we don't feel comfortable with.
I see. What do you exactly mean by that?
See, there's this whole kind of media game that one has to play on shows such as this, right? Where some entrepreneurs will get disrespected because that is what is creating the TRPs. Right? And that is not something that is part of my or TIE's way of functioning. So, for example, at Kenan, we did a show with Lufthansa called Runway to Success. Right? For the right reasons, it was never as big as Shark Tank. Right? But the intent of the show was to support entrepreneurs. And regardless of what the entrepreneur, who the entrepreneur was, who walked in with what idea, they would get positive advice, they would get respect as an entrepreneur. And in my mind, and this proposal had come to TIE, not to me, that is how we would like to nurture entrepreneurship. Now, Shark Tank has done a great job of popularizing entrepreneurship, and I would give them that credit. But yeah, it is a little bit of a different mode of doing it.
Roger that. So it almost seems to me that you realize that being a mere angel investor or a university founder or being associated with TIE was not enough, that was being either on the fence or outside, but never on the field. You wanted to pad up and go and bat out there. You did not want to be the commentator like Ravi Shastri. You wanted to be the playing Virat Kohli. So you decided to found this company with a rather tacky name, Indifi Technologies, in 2015, and which is active even today, where you are the co-founder and the executive chairman. So tell us something about the genesis of Indifi Technologies and what's going on over there.
Yeah. So, after 7 or 8 years at Kenan, I was beginning to feel the urge back to be an operator. Right. And Kenan had a shift in their kind of global plans on how they wanted to operate in different countries, which led me to kind of take a step back and say, hey, do I want to be in the fund business or do I want to be in a startup? I decided that I wanted to do another company. And as part of that, I pursued different ideas, built on 3 different ideas. Indifi was the one that kind of materialized. I found a co-founder. We found a go-to-market that seemed interesting, and we kicked off the company in 2015. I incidentally landed up investing in the other 2 ideas that other founders were building. And then for the past 10 years, we have kind of pursued this vision of enabling the alternate kind of entrepreneur who doesn't get talked about in the Indian ecosystem. Right. So the venture-backed, media-friendly founder today is a superstar. Right. They are the unicorn founders. But there are 60 million small business owners in the country who essentially try to grow against all odds. Less than 15% of them get access to debt financing. Most of them don't have external equity financing at all. And we think this is a problem worth solving. So that is what we are going behind. We think digitization offers us a lever to solve it, because clearly financial services businesses have been around for decades now. So it's not that they are not able to solve it because they don't have the intent. or the capital. But we do think that digital credit evaluation, lowering operating expense through digitization, those are levers that are required to solve it, and that is the approach we are taking. So over the last 10 years now, we have served about 1.5 lakh small businesses. I meet my customers often, and their stories are as bit, if not more compelling than any unicorn founder that I meet. So that is the mission that we are behind as we speak.
Wonderful. And I'm sure if you continue on this noble path which you enjoy, you are in for some, you are quite ahead in the line in some of the government top awards. So, best of luck to you, Alok. But what lies beyond Indifi Technologies for you? You surely have enough money for yourself and probably the next generation or two. Do you plan to retire and enjoy the other things in life, or you plan to start yet another company? Please tell us, how do you look at the future ahead from your perspective?
Yeah, I don't look at the future far ahead of myself. I've never been the person who looks at future too far down the line, right? If I had premeditated my future, I think I premeditated my future once, which was the entrepreneurship decision that I took in 1993. But venture capital happened because I had not premeditated a certain path, right? It was a little bit of an accident. So I think life does wonderful things to you if you give it an opportunity. At this point, I'm completely focused on making Indifi a success, right? I talked about 60 million entrepreneurs. We are not even at 1 million today, right? So as much as I think we have found our first camp, the summit is still far along, and there is all the intent to, move the needle on this problem. When will I do what I really want to do? I think this is what I really want to do, right? And that is why you will see me dabbling in a TIE, dabbling in an Indian Angel Network, dabbling in a Plaksha University, because I don't think we need to pursue our passions sequentially. And I think that diversity of experiences helps me in each one of those, right? So I'm able to do a better job at Indifi because I am involved in TIE and I get to meet several entrepreneurs through that, right? That is not the reason why I do TIE, right? But all of these things at some level reinforce, right? It keeps me sane. Right? This is what I enjoy doing. So yeah, I don't think of this as, hey, I'm doing this right now as work, and then when I am 60 or 70 or 80, whatever that number is, I will retire because there is something else that I really want to do, right? That is not the frame that I look at life with.
Wonderful. So, having seen all the ups and downs in the entrepreneurial world, what would be your advice to the folks who think they have an idea and want to start a company but are on the fence? Would you, for example, caution them in telling that trying is the first step to failure, which nobody would tell them?
Well, I think trying is the first step to success as well, right? And that a fence is a useful place to sit till you kind of can figure out which side of the fence you want to be in. So I don't think there's anything wrong in sitting on the fence. I do think that risk is overstated, right? And in my case, Arun was the person who bridged that gap for me of saying, hey, if it doesn't work out, we have a job for you back again here, right? And once you know that, what is the risk that you're really taking, right? Reputational risk, sure. But if all of us keep worrying about what others are thinking about us all the time, I can tell you that no one is thinking about us all the time. No one has the time or attention to do that, right? So really, I think the risk of the startup is overstated. Startups can fail. That doesn't mean we as individuals are failures, and that doesn't mean that we'll not find the next branch to hang on to, right? So I think that is the limited perspective that I would bring to the table. But yeah, it takes a certain degree of conviction to start out, and in that sense, someone on the fence, that is fine. It's also useful to ask the question of, hey, what will make me jump? Right? Are you on the fence because there are certain questions regarding the market that are outstanding? Are you on the fence because you haven't found a co-founder? Are you on the fence because you are worried about financial security in case this does not work? Right? And asking that question may allow you to address it. Right? So there are founders who come to me, prospective founders who come to me and say, hey, I don't think I can invest in the business. Right? And my answer is sure. Right? I didn't invest in my first business. And you can do a business. That was 25 years back. You can certainly do a business today without having to invest your own money into your first business. Right? So I think all of these things are solutions. But if it is sitting on the fence because startup is an interesting cocktail conversation, then I think it's an interesting place to sit.
Excellent. So please tell us something about the very you. What are your hobbies apart from angel investing? I know for sure that you are quite a singer, aren't you? You learned to play the guitar. You rode a big Bajaj bike even when you had a car. You even acted in a play when you were at Hughes. So clearly you are into theater as well. I also heard that you speed read the books. So you are quite an eclectic personality. So please do tell us about your non-work life and perhaps a little bit
Yeah.
about your family.
No, absolutely. So you know Parul, right? So Parul is actually, by far the more versatile of the two of us. As you mentioned, she has written books, she paints, she's done a startup. She's, I don't know how many, 20 plus patents to her name. So um, between the two of us, she is the better half. I have two daughters, both in college, both studying engineering. So, extremely proud of what they are doing. I have dabbled in different things at different points in time. I haven't done theater now for decades. So that's a long forgotten passion, if I may call it that. I still ride a bike. I still have a Bajaj Avenger, not the second one, not the first one that you might have seen me on. But I enjoy riding sometimes. I'm fond of music. I'm not a great singer. I know that. I did pick up the guitar actually when I sold my first company. Uh, so I'm fond of music. I'm reading quite a lot, and thanks to my Hughes colleagues, I've always been fond of reading, and I read broadly across topics. But if you remember, end of last year, there was this whole conversation stream on WhatsApp of what books have you read last year. And I really got a lot of good suggestions from there. So yeah, this year, right now, I'm running on something like my 25th book. But a lot of that came from the HSS group. So thank you for that. And again, across a wide range of topics. I scuba dive, I run, and at least I made an attempt to fly a plane. So water, land, and sky. I am spending a fair bit of time on understanding fitness and practicing a little bit of it. But yeah, just by way of curiosity, it's not just practicing; it's also reading a lot of research papers, and so yeah, I think curiosity takes me where I end up going.
Wonderful. And why don't you hum a song for us, which is one of your favorites? I really do insist. Please don't say no.
Okay, I'm not going to say no, but you're going to keep this circulation to HSS, okay? लिए सपने निगाहों में चला मैं तेरी राहों में लिए सपने निगाहों में चला मैं तेरी राहों में जिंदगी आ रहा हूँ मैं जिंदगी किया रहा हूँ मैं. Thank you.
Wonderful. I applaud you, Alok. And I immediately took me back to, I believe it was 80s, Anil Kapoor of Mashal, the Dilip Kumar movie. What a wonderful movie that was. Ki dekho holi aayi hai, holi aayi hai. Remember that one? Thanks for taking us into that world. It was a pleasure talking to you, Alok. I'm sure everybody enjoyed watching you talk and sing. I wish you remain on song forever. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been in a delightful and an instructive dialogue with the co-founder and executive chairman of Indifi Technologies, Alok Mittal.
Thank you so much, Prashant. It was lovely speaking to you.